Good morning, everyone. Microphone check, screen check. It looks like we're working on all fronts here. Good. I know the VIP side's working well. We're doing a little bit of pregame there on the stocks, but YouTube is looking good too. Fantastic. Welcome. Hopefully everyone had a fantastic weekend. Hopefully everyone was able to rest up and all that fun stuff. Get ready to rock and roll through the week. As per the usual, make sure to read through the morning prep PDF on the right side of the screen there. Very important to understand everything that is inside there. Just a quick note for you all before we jump in today as well. If you're watching on YouTube, the stream does have between a 5 and 30 second delay, which will definitely impact the timeliness of what I may be talking about at any given moment. And just want to take a second as well, like we do every day, to thank all of our new members, subscribers, Academy students, VIPs, and everyone in between, including the latest giveaway winners. Congratulations. I hope to, hopefully you're logged in already. I actually haven't even checked. But hopefully you're all ready to rock and roll. Congrats again. And everyone in between. Thank you all so much for the support. I'm super excited to have you all on board. Welcome to the SSFTG family. If you aren't a member yet, there are a few different options to check out if you're looking to further your trading education and career. One of the easiest ways to jump on in is right there on the YouTube side. You can join it, click the join button below the stream, and that will get you access to the extended hours room, where we continue the morning room with a little bit less delay to the end of the session. YouTube members also have access to the communities area, where I post all kinds of different chart setups, stock charts, analytics, and more. And of course, every member gains access to our Discord chat server. Plus, you get the awesome badge next to your name there on YouTube to show your support. It looks really cool. If you're looking to take a massive step further in understanding the trading approach and what it is that we're doing every day in the room, look no further than the Day Trading Academy. That's where you can learn how we do everything. But listen, this isn't a small little PDF guide you're going to finish in an afternoon, all right? There is a quick start course to get you going, but to really dig in like the Academy does, you're looking at about 19 plus hours of video course material. Along with the course, there's homework, study guides, strategies, and all those fun things to really make sure that you're understanding what's going on while you navigate the course, which I will review personally. Plus, you get the DTA upgrade discount too when you're ready to go up to the VIP side of things, the top floor of the executive suite. The cool thing with VIPs is that they have permanent access to everything that is SSFTG. The Day Trading Academy, private Discord chat, future updates, new strategies, monthly webinars, one-on-one access, everything else, really. It all comes as part of the package. VIPs have access to the fully dedicated, non-delayed stream for the entire session, meaning that they have the fastest connection that you can get without any delays from start to finish. So whether you're here for the very first time or you are one of the VIP vets over on the dedicated stream, welcome. I'm glad to have you trading alongside of me today, analyzing these crazy markets. Let's take a look at some charts, take a look at some news, see what's all going on. Hey, welcome. PD Legend. I think you might have already gotten the Pikachu. I wasn't paying attention. I had my thing muted while I was doing my morning spiel. Hopefully you got a Pikachu already. I might have missed it on the YouTube side. My bad if I did. But welcome. Anyway, don't forget to grab your morning DP levels. Those are posted for you this morning on the Major 7. NASDAQ, S&P, Gold, Crude, Euro, Bitcoin, and Ethereum. It's a race every time. As far as the news is concerned, we do have some 10 o'clock news. That's really about it. That is really the only thing that's kind of going on is the existing home sales at 10. We've got some medium news at 9:45, and maybe that kind of wiggles the market around a little bit. We'll see. Manufacturing PMI, market composite services PMI. But really, the big stuff's at 10 o'clock. So we'll have to wait until then. Definitely. Glad to have you on board, my friend. So taking a look at what's going on across the board here, we've got gold is definitely doing very well here. Not to that yet, but let's take a look at the S&P. We've got a nice rotation off of the lows, which is catching some nice cycling back up. I mean, the big thing that we are kind of keeping an eye on is, well, with this move down, it did happen in 3 very nice pulses. Like, it wasn't shy about it. It made it incredibly obvious where the pulses were. And from that point on, it kind of reversed off of the low. And with that reversal off of the low, they created this higher low transition. And my POCs, because of my date, is messed up. But all through this, the POC never changed. It stayed all the way up at the top. Of course, when I want it to load quickly, then it doesn't. Hang on. Jeez, oh Pete. Anyway, so we've got the POC, which is hovering back here at 4430s-ish. And with the market attempting to kind of mess around inside there, you can see there was definitely a response but the bears lost any fight that took place there. Like, they might have swung, but it was a total miss, and on the backswing, they caught the other side of the baseball bat. Like, it was a total miss. Absolute failure. Now, that's the assumption that if the sellers were there. We can further go into that a little bit more and see, were there actually sellers there? Well, looking at the volume, there definitely was. That tells us a very important piece of information, right? We know that sellers tried selling there, and they failed miserably. And we have the proof because the volume's there. And when the market rotates back above and through that type of volume structure, they're typically going to want to come back and treat it as support. And that's going to be right back to around settlement. It's had a pretty good Sunday, but a little bit of a pullback on Monday. Kind of makes sense to get back to value. Just once we start getting down here, things can get really interesting. And that's assuming that it pulls back. Remember, that's what a lot of these traders were thinking too. Well, it didn't work so well for them. Over on gold, we do have that bullish continuation to the upside. This is what we've been talking about for quite a while, looking for the higher lows, transitioning higher, blah, 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 blah. The big thing that we really needed to see is after all of this back and forth, we created that middle weighted POC that the market was hovering above, below, but it wasn't making new highs or lows. It was a wedge the whole time while it was stuck inside here. We finally got a little bit of a break underneath the lows, and what do you think? That break is against the previous prevailing trend, which was up, and it failed. Whoa, who would have thought? So it failed, rotates back up to the POC. You can see the sellers may have tried one more time, and then we have now rolled all the way back up through that. If there were shorts who were in that, trying to get that move to the downside, thinking this is the last shot that the sellers have, which, you know, could very well be the case at any given point in time. But realistically, it's just been a trap ever since then. So there's probably a lot of shorts that are still stuck. There are also a lot of longs who have finally gotten back to break even, and that could be what all of this was. And now that we're rolling higher, that's likely what it was, because, well, now we've got upside objectives back up to at least the 1835s, 36s. We'll see. Give me 1 second. I'm going to grab my sweater. It's cold in here. Okay, there we go. So, going on to crude oil next. Crude oil did put in, wow, they put in settlement way at the bottom. And now they're starting to roll back up and reversing back off the lows. And we can effectively say reversing because we are breaking previous confirmed swings. So this counts, right? That works. Whether we want to admit it or not, this is at least potential for a trend to reverse. As far as the overall back and forth, still potential for a higher low in all of those transitions, maybe even a head and shoulders we can see here. The problem is something that we actually talked about last week. The neckline does not favorably line up for a head and shoulders. That means that upside potential is limited at best if that were to be the structure. We would be a lot better off for the bulls if they keep this thing running for a little while and break firmly above it so the higher low ends up like way up here. So it's not a head and shoulders structure, so it's something else. Right? Get it away from that kind of structure so it doesn't end up falling on its face. Because if we do see something like this, where it ends up being a higher low and they start reversing back, it doesn't matter what they do after that. The reversal point starts coming into, maybe not even into the 67s. Whereas, if the neckline were in different territory, if we had a, like this, and maybe there was a neckline over here, that allows for a significantly better breakout and potential breakout retest point for upside objectives and minimized risk. So having a lopsided neckline like that, it still works, but you have to approach it from a scalper's perspective. It's a totally different mentality. It's just not functionally favorable from a risk-reward standpoint the way it is now if it were to form that way. Luckily, it hasn't yet, and the bulls are still continuing to the upside. As far as the overall volume is concerned, looking from the left to the right, the majority of the volume is building up at 64.13. That does make sense. Previous sellers selling above the highs, sellers who were short down here maybe getting some stops taken out. Could be, shorts who are short up here getting trailing stops taken out. A lot of action happening above this swing high. So again, it's pretty important that we break away from here and kind of prove what we want to do. So if it gets stuck here, then we've got some issues. 3 incredibly obvious, definitive volume nodes. Like, absolutely perfect, ridiculous. Over on the euro, they did make a new low. And that was kind of a concern initially until they immediately reversed it back the other direction. So it took about 3 seconds to realize that was not a concern anymore. Since then, we do have a break of previous confirmed swings. Nice continuation to the upside. If we're looking at this from a microcycle standpoint, we can definitely see wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, wave 5. We may be in a short-term corrective phase. That short-term corrective phase does seem to be rolling, meaning that it is continuing to the upside. Another commonly known spike and channel, right? So the corrective phase for this, if it does get a little bit of a dip, is going to be for the bulls down here in this area. This area being around the 17,191s to 060s. A little higher. Even the 100s. So just say the 100s to the 200s. Make it easy. That's going to be the zone of interest for the bulls if they're going to try to reverse it. Remember, this is a short-term reversal. This is a very short-term reversal in terms of confirmed swings reversing. The bigger ones are pretty obvious, and we're not even close to reversing that yet. So keep in mind, the bigger trend is still down structurally, but the bulls are trying to get something going. It's much more likely that if this is going to be a bottom, we see something along the lines of this, where they challenge these lows multiple times. So if this is going to be a base, this is probably going to be stuck here for a while. Unless it just V-bottoms away. We've seen that too. Yeah, it always is unless it isn't. In terms of Bitcoin, we've got more continuation back to the upside, breaking into the 50,000. I still think there's a little bit more continuation now that we've broken above the 48s. That was the big proof. Remember, we were talking about like the 47s to 48s. Well, really the 46s to the 48s. That was a big major target for the bulls reaching out from a volume standpoint. We got stuck there. The market tries rotating down, fails, tries rotating down, fails. Now we've broken back up. This is where the larger trend starts pulling back into effect, and they have a potential to rally all the way up into like the 58s, 56s, 58s. It's a logical objective. I still don't see them making all-time highs, or even if they do make it back up to the highs, my concern is that it immediately rejects off and tanks all the way back down to finish the move because, like we've been talking about, a 55% correction in the history of Bitcoin, it just doesn't happen, right? At least not during a major pullback. The major pullbacks are between 60 to 80%, usually 70 to 80. They're much deeper. It's not to say that it's impossible. It's very obviously rotating back to the upside. That's why we've been talking about the short-term bullish case, because it's still there. You can't ignore it. But once these bulls start giving up, which we haven't seen yet, but if they do start giving up, that's going to be my concern of, oh crap, where is this potentially going to drop? And if it does make it back up to the highs, that drop becomes even bigger. There's some potential issues. Ethereum, same situation, but Ethereum hasn't really broken above the highs by much. I think the major objective that bulls were looking for was buying this low and going back up to the highs. We've been talking about that for quite a while. They finally got their objectives. Target done. If it does rifle back up through the highs, get up to like 3,500, 3,600, really prove it, then sure, maybe we've got a little more continuation. But right now, it just seems like we're still sideways chopping around. It is rolling, right? Again, spike and channel. We're making higher highs, higher lows, generally speaking. There are some vindictive little traps inside there, but, you know, technically, there's still higher lows, higher highs. We'll see. Man, gold's going freaking crazy. Over on the NASDAQ side of things, we have a clean slate to start with. I wanted to make sure to start with a clean slate. Hang on. Don't mind the caffeine. Take me away. Anyway, one of the obvious things, looking at the market, And one of the things that I love doing about a fresh slate is it forces you to kind of realign your eyes. Like, okay, what am I actually looking at here? First things first, right out of the gates, the one very obvious thing in terms of a cycle goes, we've got wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, and wave 2 was nice and clean. Wave 4 was a frickin' train wreck. That's kind of expected, but once it did get going, man, it did cruise into a wave 5. And that wave 5 was initially like, okay, well, maybe this is it at a 1-to-1 expansion, but that higher low pullback and a continuation up, there's not enough separation. There's not a 5-wave counter cycle. This is all still likely part of the 5th wave. It fits perfectly. Now, that does mean that if the market is going to correct back, like if this does end up being another range high and a failure and a rotation back to the downside, typically the pullback on these structures are going to go to wave 4. Now, wave 4 is pretty wide, 15,000 down to 14,850. There's plenty of space there. But as far as definitive points of interest, we can also utilize the high, the low, just to make things easy, and then the POC cluster within that, the confirmed POC. Those would be the 3 major points of interest. So the high, good old Walmart special pricing, $14,999.99. We've got $14,960, which is the POC cluster, and then we've got the low at $14,857.25. Those 3 levels are the 3 major levels today that I want to pay attention to if the market pulls back with any substance. Those are going to be the zones of interest. 960 and 57.25. Those 3 levels. We'll see if they can pull back that far. I don't know if they're going to, but now looking at the bigger picture here, as far as the daily is concerned, we do have that typical value pullback. And the one big thing that we needed to see happen did happen. They were able to close above the POC again. Any shorts that were looking to utilize that have now been proven wrong. And they've been proven wrong while the market's at all-time highs. Now, I actually just made a blog post this morning about the this kind of what I'm looking at with this break back above the POC. Kind of an interesting read if you haven't looked at it yet, but forecasting the long-term SPY, it's a thought experiment. But if you go to SSFTG right on the main page, I've got my forecast and what I'm looking for with prices, with percentages, all the way out to around 2035. Kind of Nosferatu or Nostradamus style, whatever. That's why I did a crystal ball in the background, because, you know, who knows if it's actually going to be the case. But the anticipation with this break above the highs realistically gives us the idea that we've got the end of the year looking at what I'm going to be calling the market race of 2021. And effectively, I'm looking for the end of September to be a parabolic lift to the upside for the S&P and likely the NASDAQ and everything else to finalize major, like grand super cycle objectives. And for the SPY, for price comparison, that's at 506.56. I'll let you guys read through the rest so I don't spoil it too much. So there's a lot of potential upside now that we've broken above this, and that creates upside moves on the NASDAQ all the way up to like 16,200, 16,400 now. And if we do get a volume break, which is, I think, safe to say at this point, then realistically, look where that puts us. That would be from the low to there. Let's just volume double that bad boy up, and that puts the NASDAQ at 18,400 if we had a full volume double. Now, I'm going to play this on the realm of attempted sanity. Okay? And I'm going to go with like a 0.618 break above. And a 0.618 break above would be, I don't know what the heck is going on here. We've got an upside difference of around 16,640, potentially all the way up to 17,660, and full breakout nutso mode rockets to the moon 18,400s. So, I mean, there's some serious parabolic potential here. But I'm looking at the rest of the year to be that way. And if that is the case, I've got some concerns for 2022. We'll see how we'll see how things go. I'm calling 2022 to 25 the market reset. Like I said, I'll let you guys read through it, but right now, this break above the POC on the daily chart especially is signifying some incredible potential bullishness. Like, hugely bullish potential. We'll see if they can actually finish the job. But in the short term, on the 15-minute chart, we have a completion of a 5-wave cycle up. 1.15 isn't perfect. I'd like to see at least like 2.1. That would be a preference. You know, if we're going to break above 1. At 2.1, we'd be at 15,172. I mean, this whole area up here seems like it's going to be challenging and kind of messy. So is this going to be the end of wave 5 right here, right now? Doubtable. We're probably in a smaller little pullback phase before it keeps grinding its way up. And you can kind of see this is sort of the beginning of the end, you know. We've got this nice little deeper pullback, but you could easily see how this starts to transition things in a more sideways fashion. It can still continue up. It's just a little bit kind of meh. And then you start opening the door for those deeper pullbacks, and then things start getting interesting where you reach down to those Walmart specials at 15K. We'll see. Hey, good morning, good morning. Welcome, welcome. Now, as it stands, from the perspective of what we can see, I think realistically, this gives us enough to work with. We've got more than enough inside of here to gauge off of what's happening. The previous confirmed swing for the bulls is at 14,960, like we talked about. But if we go all the way to the bottom, to the end, give us an idea of what we're looking at here. We left behind a POC at 15,065. Now, what's interesting to me about that 15,065, hey Ace, how's it going? Morning, is that look where this happens to land, you know? We've got this POC, which is at 15,065. The POC confirmed that they left behind is at 14,960. Now I want you to look at what happened after this POC was confirmed to after they broke away from that. Right? Now let's just use a little bit of brain meats. I know it's Monday, I know it's early and caffeine's just cracked, but where's 50% of this? Right about there, right? Give or take. Now, you want to know what that tells me? That tells me that if these were shorts, they doubled down and they GTFO'd out of there. They nope, they didn't want anything to do with that move. Full-blown reversal straight out of, and never came back, all the way back up to new highs. I don't believe in coincidences. I'm having a hard time understanding how stocks can trade below zero, the same way that crude oil traded below zero, with everyone's mouth on the floor, trying to figure out what the hell just happened. I don't know. I have no idea. Just like I had no idea it was even possible that it could happen to crude. Granted, crude's a future, and again, I don't know. That's the thing. But something catastrophic when you have those types of pullbacks happens. And it's usually the catalyst that gets things going. Typically, those types of pullbacks are preceded by war. I don't like thinking about it in that way, but that's usually the case. So I wanted to think of something else. I don't want to put war on the table, you know what I mean? I'm trying to be an optimist here. So I'm looking at it more from the mindset of what else could spark massive fear, massive panic to make everybody go, wait, what? What if a stock traded to negative? We saw it on crude oil. Could you imagine if you saw a stock trade to negative, how much fear that would instill? I don't know how it would be possible. I have no idea. I didn't know it would be possible on crude either. But the amount of panic that could instill would be catastrophic. That's the type of pullback. I'm trying to think of something other than war. And that immediately came to mind. So I like that more than war. I guess. I don't know, nobody likes a 75% pullback on their portfolio, but all right. We've got more continuation to the upside, 15,065. Why did oil pull back to the negative? If you go on Google and let's see. I wonder if they have it just like a write-up. Why did crude oil go negative? I mean, obviously it's more than just one thing. There's always more than just one thing. but the write-up that they give on Market Watch, which is a fairly reasonable place to get news from, was oil storage was filling up quickly, forcing oil tankers to become floating storage. Overall, the negative prices were a result of the market not being experienced and prepared for what was coming. Along with that, just saying, one of the other caveats is that they didn't have limits imposed on crude oil anymore. They took them off. So it made that possible. Like, if there were limits on it, that wouldn't have happened. Or, well, I mean, slower, at least. It would have been different, let's put it that way. You know, maybe it would have still gone to negative, I don't know, but it's a combination of multiple things, but I'm on the same boat with you, PD. I would say that a stock can't trade less than zero, but if you told me 3-4 years ago that a futures market can trade negative, I would have told you were insane. Like, what are you talking about? What? Like, no, it can't. It just go to zero, surely. You know, so it's like the rational part of my mind totally agrees with you. But, you know, trying to find a catalyst here, and I mean, who knows? Maybe it's a negative CFD, right? Maybe that's something that takes off. Like, CFDs finally get legalized, and then that's their way to get it back out again as it goes negative. A stock goes to the negative on the CFD or something. I don't know. I don't know how it happens, but good luck getting CFDs legalized again. All the futures guys said they knew the futures. I talked to brokers who had their jaws on the floor. Like, they didn't even know it could go negative. I mean, it was like one of those things like, yeah, it can happen, I guess. But I had it was a podcast with a broker that was talking about that exact topic. They're like, I didn't even know you could do that. Whoops. I didn't mean to, but right there's a good example of fat finger. Who just said fat finger in chat? Oh, yeah, I just fat fingered an order there. My bad. Sorry, immediately exit. Whoops. I don't know. Who knows? I just don't want the answer to be war. You know what I mean? Like, give me something other than that. I'll be a happy camper. As far as, man, not a whole lot's going on. 928 didn't bring much at all. All things considered, I mean, from the beginning of... the beginning of the swing was on Friday. That's kind of a bummer. The beginning of the week kind of starts off with a weird swing low, so I guess I've just got to start with this low and see if it fits. So far, we're just kind of hovering around an L4 for the bulls. They really don't have a whole lot to work with. From the bear side, we've got a continuation down with an L3 into an L2 into another L3. A lot of confusion, but now breaking down. The last L3 procured an L2. That's what they're trying to defend right now. That does also line up with that previous large bear bar's top, 130-150. Found some interesting stuff about overnight gains and trade. Oh, nice. Yeah, let them rip. I'm interested. Or if it's like a huge article or something, because I don't know how links work on chat. If you remember, I thought it was supposed to go through, but then someone else said that it wouldn't let them, and then I didn't want to accidentally ban them. But if you're on this side, just join the Discord chat and you can post it in there. If you're not already in there. POC hovering around the 128s. Oh, okay, cool. Sorry, I didn't know if it was like some special thing that you had been digging and digging for, or what it was. So. Good bullish continuation to the upside. Bulls are trying to get things going higher here, going into the open. Obviously, the S&P is opening up pretty well. Pretty well. Nice outside gap to the upside. Huge. In hindsight, I should have just held on to my fat finger. Dang it! We are at the open. We've got more continuation to the upside so far, kicking the thing off with a nice rotation up. Bulls still have every reason to believe that it should go higher. I just wish it wouldn't have done it directly at the open. Very strong breakout move to the upside. Reaching back out towards the top. Volume so far in the S&P, nothing standout-ish. And volume on the NASDAQ. 144 has got some pretty good volume. Okay. Market came back to 144 and supported it again. It was fast. Where'd they come back to? 44 quarter. Jeez. All right, well. A tick off and $1 short. Really strong bullish continuation to the upside. Next zone of interest is going to be in these like 53s, 52s. That's going to be a pretty big spot. Still has a little bit of room up into the 70s here. Nice dip for bulls on a continuation pulse back to the upside. Nice secondary dip. It still fits a 1.5 to 1. Market's building up a lot of buyers underneath these lows. Quick pulse, a lot of volume coming in. Very nice bull bar for the bulls to try to get something going here. I'm going to reduce back off at the first area as though that first point of interest was a break even and see if I can optimize for a better point of interest for a 2-to-1. Still can't quite get that stupid 2-to-1 in there. Well, because I can't fit the 2-to-1, I'll reduce that 1 extra, and then that should allow... There we go. Now I can try to trail off that last one above the 2-to-1s for the highs. Give me a nice pulse above the top. The 70s are the primary objective right now for the bulls to keep this thing going. Pushing back up towards the 2-to-1 and hovering. And the 2-to-1 off. Nice. Had to modify it a little bit and definitely messed with it a little bit, but overall, after taking the first one off at break even, having to compensate for the fact that I couldn't get the stupid 2-to-1 in the right place, finally got it in the right place. More continuation back up. 167.25 now the highs. Still pushing through the top a little bit further. 170s. What was it? 170, 150? My concern is that this last pullback, from more of a cyclical standpoint, we've got a continuation to the upside with an L3 off of the lows, and it's very small, but they did have an L1, and then another L1. And this next one should have been an L1, which failed down to an L2. It's not to say that it can't go back up because, well, that's just a TUL2. But they didn't have that third one in the sequence, which makes me kind of question this leg up that's happening right now. It gives me concerns. But we are reaching up into the 70s. This is a major objective for a lot of different points of interest. This is the 1.21 at the very least, though. That's the part that I care about. From that last high to... They didn't break out until over there. That leaves behind that... Man, I really should have left that fat finger on. Jeez. That was like the start of the whole thing. Just like last time. As far as the POC goes for the first 5 on the S&P is at 59.50. And for the NASDAQ is at 150. Is this wave 5 on the NASDAQ 500? That would be the easiest way to qualify it. Yeah, definitely. You're talking this, I'm assuming, right? The only... And again, it's only a guideline. It doesn't have to. But when wave 2 is nice and clean, I like wave 4 to be dirty. And wave 4 wasn't very dirty. It was actually pretty straightforward. Maybe that means that this is all still part of a much larger wave 3, but if this... I think this just has to be the 5-wave structure here. If it goes much farther out, then it's just going to detach from the entire thing. So, I think it's just one of those cases that, yeah, it's just one of those impulses that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight up. That opens up objectives to like 1.187 next. A little more continuation to the upside. Second 5-minute bar now, very nice and strong, keeping it going. Possible candle gapping between bar 1 and 3 forming as well, creating upside objectives, if it, assuming it doesn't pull back at all, would be at 72.75 on the S&P. And here we sit, just kind of hovering. S&P's pulling back a little bit. I'd be interested if they fill that gap in a little bit at 61. This next pullback on the NASDAQ, still slightly concerned about. I mean, we never really had a solid starting point on Sunday, and usually when that happens, the market comes back and takes that low out. It doesn't have to, but that's kind of what's hanging out in the back of my mind right now, is that eventually we're going to see this thing pull back a lot more than just pull back in the short term. It'll be a reversal in the short term, down to those lows. But for now, the only reliable swing that we have to work with is the one that formed at like 8 or 9 o'clock on Sunday. That gave an L4 before that breakout, which usually gets an L1, but they got an L2. The L2 that's not what was expected. But with this amount of follow-through, chances are you're still going to have buyers back on the L1 again. There's enough proof with this kind of rally that they just keep buying. My concern is that the pullback should be deeper. Right? The pullback would make more sense to wait for around like the 160s to 150s. From a wave structure, at least. Left behind a POC at 180. Where can ES pull back and buy again? It depends on the time frame that you're looking at. On the 5-minute, it's going to look drastically different than like the 2000 tick. For the 2000 tick, or more just in tune with price action in this sense, it would make, it would make a little bit more sense to see this as, this thing's just so ridiculously up. Even if it is a spike in channel, I mean, it's over through the highs. I just can't be much more than a scalper. But from like the 5-minute RTH, realistically, this is a great start for at least scalpers to buy in the dip. I like 61s down to 59s. The major POC that started the day off is at 59.50. They're filling in the gap a little. But if we do end up getting a little bit of a larger pullback, looking at today at least, again, it's really awkward because of the way that these sessions closed. But I guess given that starting point, we had an L2. Oh, funky higher close, though. Ugh, what a mess. Well, they had an L2 and then broke another high. I mean, it's either the buyers buy aggressive or it's going to be a real deep pullback. I like it for scalps. That's about it. There we go. Filling a little bit more down, closing the third bar as a doji. Buyers will be underneath that last bar, but given that it gapped down to this open, I would rather see it go down an extra little bit anyway. There will be buyers underneath the doji. It's just... Tested 61, but I did not get a fill. Don't go back. Oh, man. All right, well, I've got to cancel it. I didn't get a fill. It tested my entry, no fill, and then jumped right up through the target area. What? Really? Okay. Did anybody get a fill? How do I get to the... So when you join as a member on YouTube, you can go to the communities area and all of the information about membership. It's all inside of there. I don't want to show it on the main page because it shows links, and I don't really want that for obvious reasons. But you can find all of that info in the communities area. If you're having a difficult time, you can always shoot me an email as well, jhb@ssftg.com. I can get you covered from there. Or can I send you a private message on YouTube? How does that work? No, I can't. That's so dumb. How am I not able to send someone a PM? For real? It's 2021. This is 99. We got AOL and dial-up again. Anyway, if you're not able to find it in the communities page, you can always shoot me an email. We'll get it all taken care of. They fully closed the gap again on the S&P. I didn't get a fill on it. There's nothing I can do about that. Yeah, no problem. When you sign up, just so you know, when you sign up on Discord, use a name that's consistent with like YouTube, so I know who you are, or at least shoot me a message if it's wildly different. ABCD or ABC correction down buy zone on the MES. So if the MES does have a larger scale pullback, man, I don't even know where the cycle began back here. That's the thing, you know, like as far as this overall move to the upside goes, sure, in the micro side of things, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and probably wave 5. But realistically, you could also, like for me, again, I like seeing wave 2 was nice and clean. Wave 4, I like being a mess. This fits better for me. This would all be wave 3 for me in this case, given that guideline, wave 4, wave 5. So with the completion of that cycle in the way that looks, then this is just kind of a sideways ABC before another continuation up. And that ended up being just part of another cycle. 1, 2, 3, 4, and now possibly 5. My concern is that, again, 2 is very clean, and 4 has not been very messy yet. This could be 4, and, you know, maybe that's the case. But if this does go just jerking all the way back to the upside, it's starting to make me think, like, maybe it's not yet happened. This may be on a 5-wave completion, but I've got some kind of considerations floating around in the back of my mind, you know? So if it does pull back, then the zone of interest would be inside of 55 to 45. Preferably closer to 55, or even above. Yeah, typically when I'm looking at them, again, it's just a guideline. It's not a rule per Elliott wave. There's only 3 rules for Elliott wave. As far as a guideline is concerned, when you've got a nice clean wave 2, where there's not a bunch of traps, there's not a bunch of vindictive BS that goes on inside there, wave 4 usually has all that vindictive BS. It's not always the case, but it happens enough that I pay attention to it. So I utilize it as a guideline. So my guideline is if wave 2 is good, wave 4 should be bad. It still should generally rotate back up to the highs, but it's going to do it in a really messy way. Depends on how you look at it, though, because from a messy perspective, wave 4 is something that makes it, from a messy perspective, easier to pick up on for the reversal when it does take place. It's got the higher lows, the higher highs, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, just stick with the just stick with Wolf. You know, whatever your shtick is. You know. Well, how many rules does Wolf have now? Because Elliott Wave only has 3. That's what I thought too. I was a big push against Elliott Wave for the longest time, and I will 100% that was out of pure ignorance. Not saying that, you know, if it works, don't, if it's not broke, don't fix it, you know. But when I did a little bit of reading up on Elliott Wave, I realized, oh, that was just me being dumb. Lazy more than anything else. I just didn't really want to spend the time because it looks really imposing. It really does. So there's not that much to it. I remember you sending me a thing on the Wolf ones too. I have to look back at them again. They fit really, really nicely with one of my favorite traps. I love traps. Oh, okay, gotcha. Thank you for the clarification. Okay, I like it. Staying true. That's good. I like it. $15,180 is the POC that got left behind. Again, in hindsight, being 2020, going for a 2-to-1 seems like it was stupid. Who'd have thought? Crazy. Well. I couldn't fit a runner in there to get a 2-to-1, so it wasn't worth it from a risk standpoint, which is why I exited with a 0.5-to-1 for the scalp and modified it for a 2-to-1 on the final portion. But oh well. Just got to follow the plan. But you have to approve me or something. Cool. Thanks for giving me the heads up. I have my sound muted, so I didn't hear it. Hang on 1 second. Thank you for using the same. Oh, you're a legend. All right, I got you. You should be in now. Sometimes you have to refresh it. Just make sure that you save that account name, like register it or whatever you need to do. Otherwise, you're going to have to re-register every single time. So make sure that you claim that account, I think is what they call it. But you should be able to see all of the appropriate channels and all that fun stuff. Awesome. POC getting top weighted up here on the NASDAQ. We are getting closer to 10 o'clock, which is the next, along with that, the next big block of news. What the heck just happened? Sorry, give me a second. I'm trying to figure. I clicked on something and my chat went nuts on Zoom. What in the world? And where did Notion go? Why did everything close? What did I do? It wasn't on purpose. That's not the right thing. Copy. Man, it doesn't let you copy. Oh, okay. Well, you know what I can do? Screenshots work too. Har. More bullish continuation to the upside. Market continuing its rally to the upside. Still driving. Still ripping. POC on the S&P is above, and the market so far has not been able to close above it. In retrospect, of course, but now at 44.64 quarter, we can see that none of those candles have been able to close above it. They're trying to develop one that does here in a couple seconds. Looking at the NASDAQ, the POC is also top-weighted, which would suggest that the early morning buyers at 150 are taking profit. Let's see, does that line up with anything? If they use that first candle as an objective, does that line up with like a 2-to-1? Oh, what do you know? Sure enough. That's right, and it's right around the 2-to-1 from the early morning POC. So it kind of makes sense. We haven't even had a single bear bar, so realistically, it does make a lot of sense as well that we're going to keep going higher, at least for another attempt at the top. Markets successfully closing above the POC difference when compared to the S&P, but they did just close above. That no fill on the S&P really hurts. That wasn't very nice. Awesome. Got about 4 minutes until 10 o'clock. That is when news happens, so feel free to get those questions in. Then we'll transition over into the extended session, see what's going on that picture. Very interested to see what's going on gold. And lately, we've also had some pretty slow extended sessions. So instead of just sitting there staring at nothing, we are getting closer to September. And some of the pregame stuff that we were doing on the VIP session earlier before we started the room, sometimes on the VIP room, we do earlier mornings where we'll open up at like 8:45, 8:30, something like that, and do some pregame stuff. Not every time, but and this morning we were talking about dividend stocks and things that are coming up because, again, we've got earnings season right around the corner. September's around the corner, rebalancing. There's a lot of things going on and going into the end of the year that I definitely want to start paying attention to. So if it is slow again, we'll probably just transition over into stocks and dividends and see what's going on from there. Yeah, I know, right? That is absolutely ridiculous. By the way, again, Bram, congrats. And that double win was absolutely bonkers. I mean, I'm glad that it happened in the way that it did in Tahoo because he's, like I said, been a really big supporter and have been pushing on that side of things. So it's I called it kind of karma. It was really cool, but unbelievable. I can't win, a drawing at my kid's school, let alone win $1,000 giveaway. Basically, it's insane, absolutely incredible. I love it. I'm so happy in the way that turned out. Time to go get a lotto ticket or something. I know, right? Jeez. Or was it all used up? Like, I don't know. That's my luck. Like, oh, I didn't stub my toe today, so now I'm going to lose like $400 on something stupid. Like, that's not a fair trade. What? Come on, karma. Murphy's expensive today. What? Yeah, there's a lot in there. One thing I know by the end of going through a lot of the course material, the last thing you want to hear more of is my voice. That's how I feel. I think everybody hates their own voice. It's a psychological thing. But you get used to it, I guess. The rewatching them, like watching them a couple videos at a time and then implying what you learned to the charts, and then kind of going from there is something that really helps it solidify. And then going back through and then rewatching it again and then redoing it, you'll start picking up on little nuances that you weren't picking up on before because you're slowly building that base. You know what I mean? You're building the stable floor. Yeah, Zoom on the VIP side, you get the nice mic. Still not really any pullback, but bar 6 made 2 ticks to a new high. What does that tell you? Is it a bull trap? And how do you read that price action? So yeah, great question. Looking at it from a bar-by-bar psychology side of things, first off, we've got an outside gap to the upside, which is incredibly bullish. But we also put this into context of, remember what we were talking about before, like, well, wait a minute, this big thing down, is this perfect timing for 10 o'clock? Actually, we're right in the transition time. I'm gonna save that question for just a couple minutes when we transition over into the extended session, and then we can just go into it a little bit deeper. But it's because that's gonna be one that I can really dig into for a minute. There's a lot there. There's so much there. I see. My problem was I opened the book and then I saw the chapter at the end, and I was like, oh boy. Yeah, the other two-time winner, unbelievable, like multiple 2 times. But again, if I don't hear anything, I'm gonna give it until. What do you think is fair? I mean, that's a big prize to just say. I mean, I'm not gonna take it. Like if they showed up a month from now, I'd just be like, yeah, okay, fine, whatever. But gonna have to really prove that it's you. Maybe you just do another giveaway as a bonus, I guess. I already did another giveaway but whatever. We'll figure it out. I think we're on a fair scale right now. Anyway, let's switch over to the extended session here. I'm not seeing any reason to put any more risk on the table in the morning session. I'm not seeing any questions coming in here, so let's do it that way. Another 60 seconds, yeah. Do it now! All right, let's swap over. I'll get the link posted in Discord for the extended session. If you're going to be ducking out, I hope you had a fantastic morning. Really solid moves. Like I said, I kind of feel like an idiot for taking a 2-to-1. Who'd have thought? Followed the plan, did what I needed to do. It is what it is. And the market just kept going. Didn't have enough contracts for a runner, and oh well. At least the way that things turned out. Nice move to the upside, though. Fantastic. Let's transition over. If you're going to be cutting out, though, I hope you had a great day. And for the rest of you, hang out. And yeah, thanks. Enjoy. Rest up, and we'll see you all tomorrow. All right? Have a good one. We'll talk to y'all later. Thanks.